Hi guys, this is Mr. Corzine. What I wanted to do is maybe record a little bit the last few slides of our notes from today. I know we didn't quite get to finish everything as we went over notes for functions. So hopefully this will help to clear things up if something wasn't quite clicking for you. Anyway, so let's look at this function right here. And it says it wants us to complete the input-output table for the function. That's not that bad. We've got a rule to follow, and we already have all of our inputs, our domain. So I'm just going to label that. Terrible handwriting. The domain is set, and if I wanted to, I can make a table over here to help me follow the rule X and Y. And how I will change from X to Y is through the relationship 8 minus 3. So if my input is -1, then I will take 8 minus 3 times -1. And if I evaluate that correctly, 3 times a -1 is a -3. And 8 minus a -3 actually is 8 plus 3, and it becomes 11. So if the input is -1, then the output is a positive 11. If my input is a 0, I'll change colors here. My input is a 0. Then I'll do 8 minus 3 times 0, which is easy. What's 3 times 0? 0. So 8 minus 0 makes 8. Moving on to the next one. What if my input is 1? Well, 8 minus 3 times 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 8 minus 3 gives me 5. And then finally, one more. If my input is 2, then it's 8 minus 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 8 minus 6 gives us 2. All right. Easy enough. We follow the rule here. The rule is the function itself. It shows the relationship between X and Y. I'll scroll down to the bottom. And now they want us to graph the function. In order to graph the function, you think, oh, well, this one I don't have to fill out a table. I just put it onto the graph. Well, I have to go from the function to the table and then to my graph. So let's make our table. I know they have told me all of my inputs. My domain is my input, or all of my X values. That's my clue right there. All of my X values are going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'll see if I can figure this out and calculate all of this. The relationship is I'm going to take 1/2 times X and then subtract 3. That's how I will change from X to Y, how I go from my input to my output. So if X is 6, then I do 1/2 times 6 minus 3. And I would love to see that you guys are working this out, maybe over here on the side. 1/2 of 6 is 3. When I subtract 3, it gives me 0. The important part is for us to take our X and Y. These are now connected, 6 and 0. They make an ordered pair. My ordered pair I can now take to the graph, and I remember I go over 6 and up 0. So here's my first point right there. Next, if X is 7, then I'll do 1/2 times 7 minus 3. So that's 3.5 minus 3, which gives me 0.5. I now have an ordered pair that says 7, 0.5. There we go. And I go over to my table, or I go over to my graph, and I take my values from my table. I go over 7, up 2.5, and I'm starting to get some momentum. If X is 8, then I'll do 1/2 times 8 minus 3. So that's 4 minus 3 makes 1. I go over 8, up 1, and now I can see what my values are on the table. You guys following this? Hopefully this is making sense, and a lot of this stuff is familiar for you. Let's move down. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Here, they want you to write a rule. Boy, this gets a little more challenging. But keep in mind that you're just going to follow all of those steps. We've got our graph, we've got our table, and then we have to find that relationship. So if I made one of those tables over here, I've got my input output, and I've got the relationship that goes in between, I can start to piece together some of the clues. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want to find all of my ordered pairs. I go and I look here, and I say, on this graph, I've got this point, and it's 0, 1. So when my input was 0, my output was 1. Next, I'll just like move this really crazy circle over. I'm going to go, when my x was 1, then my y was 3. And when my x was 2, then y ended up being 5. When x was 3, then y was 7. And you're starting to see a pattern, I'm sure. When x was 4, y was 9. Okay. Well, just seeing a pattern isn't enough. Just knowing what comes next, you probably know the next one is 5 and 11. You have to be able to write a rule, and this means we got to use our algebraic language. We got to use algebra. So let's fill in our table. All of our domain is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our outputs, our range, that's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. We want to find the pattern and then translate that into an equation. So when x was 0, y was 1, x was 1, y was 3, x was 2, y was 5. What is always happening here? Well, that's a tough call. We have to figure out something. We got to find the pattern. So this one is more complicated because there's more than one operation happening. Here it looks like we're just adding 1, and then here it looks like we're adding 2. Here it looks like we're adding 3 and 4. That's not good enough for us. We can't have something different happening every time. We need to have the same. Even though it's a pattern, that's not okay. I'm going to get rid of these and see if we can find something else. What it looks like is happening is, well, I'm looking for a clue. But my y values are going up by 2 every time. You see that happening? Guess what? You're going to take your x value and you're going to multiply times 2. But that's not all. We double our x value, and then we always have to do what? 0 times 2 is 0. We have to add 1, right? 1 times 2 is what? 2. Then we have to add 1. In every case, we have to add a 1. So now we're in a good spot. If I go down to the bottom, I've got my x and y. What do I have to do to x to get y? Well, I take it, I multiply times 2, and I add 1. That's my rule, and my function should say, in order to get y, I got to double x and add 1. Okay? There are more of these to do. I'm going to stop recording right now because I think that you guys should get the gist of it. I'm going to post the completed notes so you can see everything. But hopefully this video will help you if there was something you're having trouble with. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.